Hey y'all, TRG here, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'll be talking about the likelihood of severe weather over the next couple days, mainly in the central and northern United States. I'll also be going over a very active tropical period that we're currently experiencing out in the Atlantic Basin with a newly named tropical storm, Dexter. Let's go right on into today's video. Starting out as we always do with the current satellite imagery across the lower 48 US, we have a lot of cloud cover across portions of the northern US and southern southeastern US. We have a remnant severe weather event that occurred yesterday out in Kansas, spawning a couple tornadoes, including a large, strong tornado in west central Kansas. The remnants of that system is actually in southeastern Texas, currently moving offshore as of about 1 p.m. Eastern time. And Dexter is currently well off the coastline of North Carolina, well north of Bermuda, so no land impacts are anticipated with Dexter as it moves gradually off to the north-northeast, maintaining tropical storm status likely until late this week, if not even lasting till the weekend. And we will be watching for the potential of another tropical system to attempt to form off the coastline of the Carolinas in the southeastern U.S. Could bring some flash flooding impacts as we go towards the latter half of this week, as well as the potential for a tropical storm to form out in the eastern Atlantic Basin. Taking a look at your radar imagery across the U.S., we have some isolated heavy rain showers across the southeastern U.S., some isolated heavy rain across Nebraska, Iowa, as well as Illinois and Indiana, and then that remnant MCS still making its way across far southeastern Texas with no severe threat at the moment. Now taking a look at your Atlantic Basin, we do have Tropical Storm Dexter that is expected to continue off to the northeast and may even intensify very slightly as we go into the overnight hours tonight, and it will likely dissipate sometime on Thursday or Friday. It's going to become a post-tropical cyclone and then probably dissipate shortly after that, or the NHC may quit advisories as it goes well out into the north central Atlantic towards the latter half of this week. We do have a 30% AOI out here across portions of the southeastern U.S. or just off the coastline of the southeastern U.S. Right now, that is at a 30% chance of development in the next 7 days, 0% chance in the next 48 hours. And then something that is a little bit higher probability is out here in the eastern Atlantic Basin. They have upped this to a 50% chance of development in the next 7 days, 0% chance for development still in the next 48 hours. So we have those two AOIs we're watching closely, and then Dexter as it moves off to the northeast. Back out here in the eastern Pacific, we do have another AOI 10% in the next 48 hours, 60% chance in the next 7 days. So almost a high chance for development there. We have a tropical storm that will likely form overnight tonight, if not late tonight out here in the eastern Pacific. Previous tropical storm out here in the central Pacific. And then we could see, again, another tropical storm out of the 60% AOI in the eastern Pacific later on this week. The western Pacific is also quite active. We have an invest well off the eastern coastline of the Philippines. Another invest out here. We have a tropical depression that is most likely not going to be able to become a tropical storm. A previous tropical storm and then another previous tropical storm. So overall, a lot of tropical activity across both the Atlantic and the Pacific basins. Before we go on into the rest of today's video, I ask that you guys hit that like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media, and consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload another video. Let's go right back on into today's video. So for today, we've got a slight risk for severe weather across portions of Montana, South Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma. Big slight risks for severe weather today with a marginal 1 out of 5 in that dark green. Could see a tornado or two in the dark green areas. Damaging winds could approach as high as 70 to 75 miles per hour. And then hail being the biggest concern, up to 3-inch in diameter today. Tomorrow, hail will also be a concern out there in South Dakota. Damaging winds of about 60 to 70 miles per hour. And then I wouldn't rule out a tornado or two tomorrow, mainly in North Dakota into South Dakota. I'm pretty surprised I don't have a 2% tornado risk on that just yet, but I wouldn't rule out a brief tornado tomorrow as well. And then going on into day 3, which is Wednesday, they have a large marginal risk in effect from Minnesota all the way back down to Colorado and Kansas. Now, hold on just a second. We got something that's a little bit rare, something we haven't seen as often in July and now going into August, obviously. It's a day 5 slight risk for severe weather being issued out here in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota for the potential of 2.5-inch hail, 70-mile-an-hour winds, and a couple of tornadoes all being possible. You don't see this very often. You know, you still see it a couple times during the months of July, August, September, but it's not as common as in during like tornado season. So definitely want to be keeping an eye on that. Could be a bit better chance for a notable, significant, severe weather threat. And if you've been watching any of the videos recently, we called this out almost like 5 days ago for the potential of severe weather on this upcoming Friday. And now the SPC has finally gone ahead and highlighted that risk of severe weather across South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota. Let's go ahead and dive on into some model data, and oh boy, don't we have a lot of model data to look at. So for today, we're starting with the HRRR12Z here. We're not going to see much activity across the plains until likely about 6 o'clock, maybe just after 6 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to start seeing the chance for a couple of supercells to form out in Wyoming and back down here in Colorado. Now, I do want you to note that this is just a single model run, and this model didn't do very well with depicting yesterday's severe weather threat across western Kansas, so there's a high chance we see a lot more storm coverage than what this model run is depicting for today. Going into the overnight hours, we continue to see the chance for a couple of supercells going towards about 8, 9 o'clock Eastern time later on tonight, and then storms will likely rapidly weaken anytime around or just after 11 p.m. Eastern time. Then going on into tomorrow, really not looking at anything too crazy across much of the Central Plains on this particular model run. Really, everything's going to be focused across the North Central Plains up in South Dakota and North Dakota. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the HRRR for today yet again, but this time a bit further north. Taking this out to about 8 o'clock or so, we'll start to see the increase of some severe storms likely out there across Montana, into Canada, across Wyoming, just like we mentioned a second ago. And then pulling this out even further, all the way till tomorrow, because tomorrow is what I really want to look at here with the HRRR. It definitely shows a bit of a messy mode, but I really do believe we should have the chance for a couple tornadoes out in this general vicinity here across North Dakota and South Dakota. Taking a brief look at our tornado ingredients, it's definitely not high. You know, we have a good amount of instability, about 2.5 to 3K, 0 to 1 kilometer shear is a bit lacking, and then 0 to 3 kilometer wind shear is pretty good. So overall, it's like an okay environment. I would believe, and from what I can tell, we're probably going to have to see more discrete storms that will pose our tornado threat. So probably anything that can really be discrete and take advantage of that environment. It does look like elevated storms could be an issue here. Our temperatures are in the mid 80s with dews in the mid 60s. So it definitely looks like tomorrow will be mainly a hail threat followed by damaging winds. And then with any discrete storms, I just wouldn't rule out that isolated tornado or two going into the afternoon hours. Main threat for your time frame here is from about 4 p.m. to about 9 p.m. tomorrow for that main threat of severe storms across mainly North Dakota into South Dakota. Moving into the 500 millibar wind speeds on the GFS model run. So today we're having that high pressure across portions of the Four Corners into southwest Texas, and then we just have a big ridging pattern with just a belt of flow across the northern side of your ridge, causing the chance for some isolated supercells with that jet stream, mainly across Wyoming. I think Wyoming has the best chance for some supercells today, but we could see an isolated one out in Colorado and or Kansas later on this evening. And then going into tomorrow, we continue to see that flow as it pushes across the northern side of our high pressure, relatively weak, so tomorrow probably won't be as good of a chance for supercells as today, but still could see an isolated tornado back out there in North Dakota, South Dakota. Wednesday, we should see a bit better flow across the northern side of that ridge, so we'll probably have a better chance for some damaging winds, isolated hail, and then maybe a weak tornado on Wednesday. Possibly a little bit more widespread than what we're going to see tomorrow. I wouldn't rule out a couple of those instances of hail, damaging winds, and a tornado or two, and a bit better of a more widespread area compared to tomorrow for Wednesday. Going on into Thursday, that's kind of a bit of an uncertainty kind of day here. We don't really know what's going to happen. It depends on how our trough looks, but we'll most likely have at least a chance for a couple of severe storms in Montana back through Idaho into Utah going through Thursday afternoon and evening. Friday will likely be the biggest day out of the next couple days for severe storms, as we will likely have a negatively tilted trough across portions of the far northern plains. Now, it does depend exactly where this trough is located. Right now, the GFS is actually pushing it mainly into the U.S., so that would lead to a actually very favorable environment for all hazards, including a chance for a strong tornado if we saw more discrete supercell modes here going into Friday Friday afternoon and Friday night. So if we do see that negatively tilted trough, which I think we're going to, I think we could get a bit of a better chance of tornadoes there going into Friday evening and Friday night. Better lower level jet, good negatively tilted 500 millibar there on the GFS. Temperatures definitely up there into almost the low 90s, and dew points, those could be an issue. We're going to need some good 70s to maybe mid 70 dew points to allow for a lower temperature dew point spread on Friday. If we don't see that, we could end up with more elevated structures and a lot more messy modes. So definitely not looking like a crazy tornado event, but it could be one of our first good threats of a strong tornado in quite a while. And this would probably be focused across North Dakota, maybe eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, and southern Canada. Those would be the main areas to watch. And right now, the GFS not doing a very good job on depicting any precipitation there. So definitely not set in stone, but I wouldn't rule out some large hail, significant damaging winds, and a couple tornadoes, maybe even an isolated strong tornado if we could get this negative trough to actually come to fruition. And then most likely we'll continue with the risk for severe storms going into this weekend. On Saturday, that should continue to push across the north central plains. Now, the good news is it doesn't look like this is going to push too far into the Midwestern U.S. 2 videos ago, we were talking about an Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan threat here. Michigan still could see a couple strong storms going into Saturday and Sunday, but it doesn't look like this trough is going to reach really that far south. We will have to watch towards the beginning of next week, though, about a week from today, to see this next trough that pulls through across the northern side of our high pressure, to see if that could pull the threat for severe weather a little bit more south. You can see here on the GFS, just one model run, remember, might pull that severe threat a bit further to the south. However, that's a little bit too far out to talk about, and there's a lot of uncertainty regarding that trough because, well, we haven't got through our first trough, which is pulling through on Friday just yet. Now, before we move on into the model runs for our tropics, I do want to mention today and tomorrow's flash flooding threat, because there is a chance it's a bit more on the significant side of things. We have a large slight risk level 2 out of 4 for the chance of some excessive rainfall today across much of Georgia into the Carolinas. Tomorrow, that continues even a bit further into the Carolinas and also gets pushed back out towards Alabama into Florida. And then on day 3, that does get downgraded on Wednesday into a level 1 out of 4. But today, and specifically tomorrow, I think we have a good chance for the potential of significant flash flooding back out in this corridor here. If we take a look at our multi-day excessive rainfall forecast from the WPC, they are forecasting upwards of 3 inches of rainfall across the upstate portions of South Carolina, Southwest North Carolina, and northeastern Georgia. So if you do live in those areas, keep a close eye on it, because there is a chance for some significant flash flooding, especially if you are in a flash flood prone area. Taking a look at our GFS 12Z model run across the Atlantic Basin provided by tropicaltidbits.com. We're using the 700 millibar geopotential height vorticity here, and let's go ahead and pull this all the way out. So for tomorrow, you can see that is Dexter right there moving through the north central Atlantic, and I really think this is going to start dying out towards the weekend or very late this week, Thursday, Friday. I think it's going to start dying out as it merges with another front, and most likely the NHC won't talk about it much after probably Thursday-ish, Friday, somewhere around there. And then going into Friday, Saturday, we do want to watch off the coastline of the Carolinas. Now, this is not aggressive by any means, but there is a little vorticity blob there, right, pretty much on top of Myrtle Beach right there, going into Friday and Saturday. So we do want to watch for the very low chance, but not impossible opportunity of a tropical depression, or maybe even a low-end tropical storm to try to form off the coastline of the Carolinas, and maybe either skim or move inland on the Carolinas Friday or Saturday, sometime late this week into the weekend. Definitely keeping a close eye on that. And then our wave out here that the NHC gives about a 50% chance of development, the GFS really doesn't do too much with. It just stays as a vorticity blob. But this is a bit interesting. Now, this is where uncertainty is very, very high. Going into Sunday, big question mark here. Is our high pressure strong, or is it a bit weaker? If it is strong, it's going to go out to sea, and we're not going to hear much from it. It could be a brief tropical storm near the high pressure, but it won't impact any land. The GFS actually does a completely different scenario. The high pressure weakens considerably on Saturday and especially Sunday. And look at our little vorticity blob. It sneaks in between that high pressure, stays just barely to the north of the Lesser Antilles, and there is some model runs that shows this developing into a tropical storm or even a hurricane over the Bahamas or around the Florida Peninsula, southeastern US area, generally somewhere in this region. A few models do have a tropical storm to hurricane forming. I think that is the least likely case scenario. Honestly, I just think our high pressure is going to take this out to sea, maybe a brief tropical storm or depression around the high pressure in the middle of the Atlantic. But I just want to point out there is a chance, albeit very, very low, that this sneaks by our high pressure and attempts to form into something like a tropical storm towards the southeastern U.S. coastline. Now, I don't know what the GFS, I didn't look at this part. This just finished rendering in here. Just ignore that. That's 330 hours out. This actually brings me to another point. If you ever see somebody posting the GFS very far out, don't take it seriously whatsoever. This model run can do some insane things, absolutely insane things, just like this. So that is a very low scenario. No other model run shows that happening. So these are just deterministic model runs. And to show you something that is a little bit more accurate, let's look at the ensembles. So we want to take a look at two different ensembles. This is the European ensembles here. And you can see pretty much, if not almost all the Euro ensembles now want this going out to sea. But I also want you to note the Euro ensembles are a bit more aggressive with the chance of a tropical storm off the coastline of the Carolinas. So multiple different areas here, actually a lot to digest here. We've got our AOI out here that the European ensembles, some want it going into the Gulf, others want it going towards the Carolinas. Either way, there's a chance for development. Dexter going off into the northern Atlantic, the potential for a tropical storm, and even some of these push a borderline hurricane going out to the central Atlantic, and then another wave as we go towards early next week forming somewhere in the central main development region. But notice how none of these ensembles, not a single one, brings our AOI out here in the Atlantic into the Gulf. So I really just, the GFS model, once you go beyond 200 hours out, you really should just completely disregard it, because it changes so much and it's so inaccurate. So please be careful when you see things like that. The GFS over 200 or 240 hours out, it gets very inaccurate and people like to use it for fear mongering and for clicks. Now, another ensemble I want to show you is the GFS ensembles. These a little bit more aggressive. I'm going to go out a bit further here. We're going to go out to, we're going to have to use some older data on the GFS, the 06Z. We're going to go out to about 240 hours out. That's what the Euro ensembles go out to, 240 hours out. Definitely way more aggressive than the Euro. You can see this has it surviving until it gets to the southeastern US. So this is going to be a very good comparison to see which ensembles are going to be more accurate this year. What's going to win with this system? Is the GFS ensembles going to win with this going towards the US? Fingers crossed it's dead wrong. Or is the Euro going to win where this goes out to sea? That's going to be something we really want to pay attention to see which one of these ensembles may be the more accurate ensembles for this hurricane season. But you can see the GFS also picks up on another wave out here in the main development region, much weaker, not as big of a signal as the Euro, and then also picks up on the potential for a brief tropical depression, borderline, I would say absolute max is a low-end tropical storm out here going towards the Carolinas or near the Carolinas, and then obviously Dexter. So still has the same areas. It still has big wave here. It still has wave off the coastline of the Carolinas, still has Dexter, and then another wave here. So it still has our four main waves there. So once again, be careful when you're listening to those deterministic model runs, because your ensembles, that's going to be what we want to pay attention to the most this season. And I just want to go back to that Euro just to do a bit of a quicker comparison here between the Euro and the GFS ensembles. Just comparing those quickly, you can see the GFS way more to the south, Euro way more to the north. Huge difference with our main development region wave there. So again, it's going to give us a pretty good idea of which ensembles may end up being the best ensembles to use for this season, to see if the GFS is going to be correct with this moving towards the US, or if the Euro is going to be correct with this moving out to sea. All right, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Definitely was a bit of a longer video, a lot to go over. Very, very active weather patterns setting up up here, not only in the US, but also in the Atlantic Basin. I didn't really want to go into the model runs there for the Eastern Pacific. A lot of those storms are just going to stay out to sea. I don't see much of a threat to land in the Western Pacific or the Central Pacific. The Eastern Pacific as well, it really looks like those storms are going to just stay off the coastline of Mexico and move out to sea. So I didn't really want to go over that because it looks like those are all going to be fish storms. Hopefully that is true. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. And if you did, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with family, friends, social media, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And I will catch you guys in the next live stream or video that I do. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.